My beloved child. There is a reason this moment feels different from so many moments that came before it. If something guided you here today, even if you cannot fully explain why, pay attention to that feeling. There are times when life begins changing quietly before any visible signs appear. There are moments when important things start moving beneath the surface, long before anyone can clearly see what is taking place. This may be one of those moments. Before this day began, before you arrived at this exact moment, a thought about you entered someone's heart with unusual strength. It was not a passing thought. It was not something that appeared for a second and disappeared. It stayed with them. It returned again and again. Every time it returned, it became harder to ignore. What started as a small feeling slowly grew into something much deeper. Even now, while you are listening, that feeling continues growing somewhere beyond your awareness. Do not dismiss these words too quickly. Something meaningful is unfolding behind the scenes. There is a person who has reached a place where imagining tomorrow no longer feels complete unless you somehow appear in that picture. This realization surprised them. They never expected to arrive here. At first, they convinced themselves it was nothing more than curiosity. They thought maybe they were simply paying attention because you seemed different from most people they had met before. Later, they called it admiration. They told themselves they simply appreciated certain qualities about you. Then they tried explaining it as a collection of small observations. They noticed little things, the way you speak, the way you listen, the way you pause before responding, the way you carry yourself when nobody is watching, the way your presence seems to linger in their thoughts long after you have gone. At first, these details seemed insignificant. They appeared small and ordinary. But over time, those details began forming a much larger picture inside their mind. Slowly, that picture became impossible to ignore. Without realizing it, they started looking forward to moments connected to you. They began remembering conversations that most people would have forgotten. They replayed ordinary interactions and found themselves searching for meaning inside them. Then there was one moment that changed everything. You may not even remember it. You may have thought it was completely ordinary. But for them, it became unforgettable. Maybe it was something you said. Maybe it was something you did. Maybe it was a simple act of kindness. Maybe it was nothing more than a brief moment of silence. Whatever it was, something about that moment stayed with them. Long after it ended, they continued thinking about it. Days later, they remembered it. Weeks later, it was still there. Months may have passed, yet that memory continued holding a special place in their heart. Since then, they have quietly compared many ordinary days to that single memory. Somehow, it continues standing apart from all the rest. What makes this even more meaningful is that they are no longer wondering only how you are doing. They have started wondering what life might look like if your path and their path continued moving in the same direction. That thought did not come easily. It arrived after hesitation. It arrived after questions. It arrived after repeated attempts to push the feeling away. More than once, they told themselves to slow down. More than once, they tried focusing on other things. More than once, they convinced themselves they were imagining more than what was really there. Yet, every effort brought them back to the same place. The feeling remained. Instead of fading, it became clearer. Instead of weakening, it became stronger. What makes this different is that they are not thinking only with emotion. They are thinking carefully. They are looking closely at what truly matters. They notice how your presence brings peace into moments that would otherwise feel restless. They notice how conversations with you stay in their thoughts much longer than expected. They notice how memories connected to you shine brighter than many larger events from their past. These realizations have become impossible for them to ignore. Some people enter a life briefly. Some people appear for a season and then disappear. But there are rare people whose presence begins shaping future decisions before anything has even been spoken aloud. You are becoming that kind of presence in someone's heart. That is why there have been moments when they seemed quieter than usual. That silence has not been empty. Inside that silence, they have been measuring possibilities. Inside that silence, they have been asking questions they never imagined asking. What if this feeling is real? What if this connection means something important? What if this person is not temporary? What if this moment is leading somewhere significant? Those questions continue returning, and even though they may not have spoken them aloud, their actions have already begun revealing the answers. Perhaps they look for signs of you more often than before. Perhaps they notice your absence immediately. Perhaps they remember details that even you have forgotten. Perhaps they revisit conversations in their mind long after those conversations have ended. None of this is happening by accident. Something within them has attached meaning to your presence, and the reason that meaning continues growing is because they see something rare in you, something difficult to describe, something impossible to overlook. They see quiet strength, they see sincerity, they see emotional depth, they see qualities that are becoming harder and harder to find. Many people create noise, many people demand attention, many people focus only on appearances, but you offer something different. You offer substance, you offer honesty, you offer a presence that feels real, and that difference matters more than you realize. What they feel is not built only on attraction. It is not built only on excitement. It is not dependent on temporary emotions. Instead, it is being built on something that feels capable of lasting through changing moods and passing seasons. That is why thoughts about the future appeared sooner than expected. Sometimes the heart recognizes stability before the mind finds words to explain it. Sometimes people recognize value before they fully understand why. That is exactly what has been happening. Even if they still appear uncertain on the outside, they are much closer to clarity than you know. There is also something they have shared with no one. More than once, they have imagined speaking honestly to you. More than once, they have imagined revealing everything they have been carrying inside. They have imagined how that conversation would begin. They have imagined what they would say. They have imagined how you might respond. But every time they reach that point, hesitation appears. Not because the feeling is weak, not because the feeling is uncertain, but because it has become important. When something matters deeply, people become careful. They fear saying the wrong thing. They fear moving too quickly. They fear damaging something valuable before it has a chance to grow. That is where they find themselves now, standing between silence and honesty, standing between caution and courage, standing between uncertainty and action, trying to determine the right moment. And recently, something happened that made their feelings even stronger. Maybe there was distance. Maybe communication became less frequent. Maybe there was a period of silence. Maybe life simply became busy. Whatever the reason, there was a time when your presence was not as available as before. And during that absence, they discovered something important. They discovered how much they missed you. Sometimes people only recognize value when something becomes temporarily unavailable. Sometimes silence reveals truths that constant presence keeps hidden. That silence revealed something powerful. It showed them that your presence had already become meaningful. It showed them that you occupied more space in their thoughts than they ever realized. It showed them that what they feel is not temporary. That realization carried weight, because once possibility enters the heart, the future begins feeling personal. Suddenly, decisions matter more. Suddenly, hopes become stronger. Suddenly, questions become impossible to ignore. That is why the thought of building something real has started appearing in their mind. Not because every answer already exists, not because every outcome is guaranteed, but because something inside them no longer wants to treat this lightly. And what is happening beneath the surface may be far greater than it appears. While you continue wondering who could possibly be thinking about you this deeply, someone has already started viewing their future differently because your presence entered their life. Thoughts they never expected to repeat continue returning. Memories they assumed would fade continue remaining. Questions they believed would disappear continue growing stronger. An ordinary task becomes interrupted because your name crosses their mind. A quiet evening suddenly feels different because a memory connected to you returns. A peaceful moment becomes meaningful because it reminds them of something you once said. And every time this happens, they arrive at the same question. Why does this feel different? Why does it continue growing instead of fading? Why does it remain even after time passes? They have searched for logical explanations. They have examined their feelings carefully. They have questioned themselves repeatedly. Yet every path leads back to the same truth. This feeling has depth. At first, they believed it was temporary attention. Then they noticed it survived difficult days. It survived distractions. It survived distance. It survived uncertainty. And that survival taught them something important. Real feelings do not disappear simply because circumstances change. Real feelings remain present even when life becomes complicated. Real feelings continue speaking even when silence becomes louder. That is why they now find themselves comparing future possibilities with a single question. Would those possibilities truly feel complete without you? That question has become difficult to escape. The more they think about it, the more important the answer becomes. Because every future they imagine somehow feels brighter when your presence is included. Every plan feels more meaningful. Every hope feels more alive. Every possibility feels more exciting. And while they may not fully understand how they arrived here, they can no longer deny where they stand. You have become part of their thoughts. You have become part of their hopes. You have become part of the future they quietly imagine. This does not mean everything has already been decided. It does not mean every step has already been taken. Life still contains choices. Life still contains timing. Life still contains uncertainty. But something significant has begun. A seed has been planted. A feeling has taken root. A possibility has started growing. And every day that passes seems to strengthen it. They notice your strengths. They notice your kindness. They notice your resilience. They notice the way you continue moving forward even when challenges appear. They notice qualities that many people overlook. And the more they notice, the more respect grows beside affection. Because what captures their attention is not only who you are on your best days, it is who you are consistently. It is the character revealed through ordinary moments. It is the authenticity that shines through even when you are not trying to impress anyone. Those things matter. Those things leave a lasting impression. Those things are becoming impossible for them to forget. So while you continue living your life and moving through your days, understand that somewhere beyond your awareness, a heart is carrying thoughts that have become increasingly difficult to ignore. A heart is asking questions it never expected to ask. A heart is imagining possibilities it never expected to imagine. And with every passing day, those thoughts become clearer. The feeling becomes stronger. The picture becomes easier to see. What began as a simple thought has become something far more meaningful. What began as curiosity has become connection. What began as attention has become significance. And what began quietly continues growing one moment at a time. The story is still unfolding. The future is still unwritten. But one thing has already become clear. You matter more than you realize. Your presence has left a deeper mark than you know. And somewhere, someone continues carrying that truth with them even now. Recently, they noticed something about you that reached beyond appearance. It reached beyond conversation. It reached beyond simple interest. They began seeing qualities that cannot be measured through first impressions. They noticed how you carry yourself through uncertainty. They noticed how you continue moving forward when answers are unclear. They noticed how you remain steady during moments that might cause others to lose balance. That steadiness stayed with them long after the moment passed. They continued thinking about it. The memory followed them into ordinary days. It returned during quiet moments. It appeared when they least expected it. Slowly, a new realization began forming inside them. This was not a passing thought. This was not a temporary feeling. This was not something that would disappear with time. It was something they returned to again and again. Carefully, quietly, honestly, a possibility began growing. A possibility that this connection entered their life for a reason that should not be ignored. And with every passing day, that possibility feels a little more real than it did before. That single realization changed the way they looked at everything. It became a turning point they never expected. Since then, something inside them has been changing little by little. It is not the kind of change that others can easily notice. It happens quietly, beneath everyday conversations, behind familiar routines, and inside ordinary moments that seem no different from any other. They are no longer asking themselves whether you left a lasting impression. They already know the answer to that. There is no longer any doubt that you have become unforgettable. The question they now carry is much deeper. They wonder whether they are finally ready to step closer to everything they have been feeling before too much time slips away. They keep asking themselves if waiting any longer still has a purpose. They wonder whether staying silent is protecting them or only delaying something that has become impossible to ignore. These thoughts return again and again because the feeling inside them refuses to disappear. This stage of the journey is far more important than most people understand. It is the moment when someone begins protecting a feeling before they ever speak about it. It is the point where emotions quietly become stronger than words. The heart begins making decisions long before the voice is ready to explain them. That is why their conversations with you may still sound completely normal. Their actions may seem calm and measured. Nothing on the surface appears dramatically different. Yet beneath that peaceful appearance, something much stronger is taking place. Their heart has become louder than ever before. They may smile, speak casually, and continue with everyday life. But after every conversation, they return to those moments in their mind. They replay your words. They remember the tone of your voice. They remember your expressions. They notice tiny details that most people would never think twice about. Things that once seemed ordinary now carry meaning. Although they appear patient on the outside, inside they are paying attention to everything. Every small change catches their attention. Every interaction feels important. Every shared moment becomes something worth holding on to. And when they choose silence, that silence should never be mistaken for a lack of feeling. Sometimes, silence carries the deepest emotions. Sometimes, silence exists because a person finally realizes how valuable something has become and fears making the wrong move. There are moments when silence is not distance at all. It is simply the heart becoming more careful than it has ever been before. There is another reason their thoughts have started reaching further into the future. By now, they have seen enough to understand that you are not just another person passing through their life. It is not because everything has been perfect. It is not because every question already has an answer. It is not because every challenge has disappeared. It is because something about your presence gives them a feeling that has become incredibly rare. You give them emotional certainty. It is difficult for them to explain. They cannot fully describe why they feel it. Yet every passing day, that certainty continues growing stronger instead of fading. There is also another thought they have been carrying quietly inside themselves. It is not something they openly admit. From time to time, they imagine what might happen if someone else reached your heart before they found the courage to express their own feelings. That possibility affected them much more deeply than they expected. It forced them to recognize something they had been avoiding. The thought of losing the chance to discover what this connection could become feels far heavier than they ever imagined. They tried convincing themselves that they had more time. They tried believing there was no hurry. Yet that quiet fear continued returning until they could no longer ignore it. The realization stayed with them. It followed them during peaceful evenings when everything around them became quiet. It stayed with them through busy days when they tried focusing on work and responsibilities. Even while surrounded by other people, the thought continued appearing without warning. No matter how much they tried distracting themselves, it remained. Because of that, they have become much more aware of the little things. They notice small changes in your voice that others would never hear. They notice shifts in your energy. They recognize when your attention feels closer than before. They also notice the moments when you seem distant. Even the smallest differences no longer escape their attention. This is not because they want control. It is not because they are trying to imagine feelings that are not there. It happens because when someone begins picturing another person as part of their future, even the smallest signals suddenly carry meaning. Tiny moments begin speaking louder than grand gestures ever could. Perhaps what surprises them most is that they do not fully realize how visible these emotions have become. There are days when hearing from you completely changes their mood. One simple message can stay in their thoughts for hours. One ordinary conversation can become the brightest moment of an otherwise average day.